wonder if this is on. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So good morning, everyone. I think, well, I don't know about you guys, but I know I went home last night and just felt fantastic about the stuff that I had seen yesterday evening in terms of not only the content, not only the activities that all of the different groups have done, but just a sense of people have moved so far from last conference, and people have come together, it looks like, as a team, and people were so happy to share what they've done with each other and to ask other teams what they've done. So I think it really puts us, as we said earlier this morning with sort of the planning group here, the advisory group, really puts us in a place like a perfect storm in terms of moving forward with what we are here to do. In the same breath that I say that, I also think that it is important that we remember that we are working not only with academics and conservation, but of course also with corrections. And with corrections, we can't ever forget that we're working with populations of people who do not always make us feel safe. And I think all of you are aware of a recent incident that Dan Pacholke wanted to bring up with us today, this morning, before we start.
Thanks, Nalini. Sure. So I don't know how many of you know, but yesterday, actually it was the night before last, Tom Clements, who is the director of the Colorado Department of Corrections, was murdered at his home. Actually, someone knocked on the door and he opened it and he was shot and killed. So Tom is a longtime corrections professional. He was very progressive, I want to say, in Missouri. Was the director of the Colorado Department of Corrections, just a real gentleman, you know, a family man, a guy that dedicated himself. I think he was 35 years in the business, so he didn't really need to continue to do the work, but he did it because he had a passion around it. I happen to know him personally only because we worked on a couple national projects together, so I just thought maybe we'd take just a moment of silence for Tom Clements. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. So that maybe reinforces what we need to do in this room today and when we go back to our home states and our home institutions. I'm just going to give you some really quick housekeeping things. The timeline here is that we're going to be in this facility all day until 4:30. Then you'll have about an hour of free time to stretch your legs and go experience our beautiful snow out here, our beautiful wet snow. And then we're going to reconvene. There will be shuttles that will be taking us to the Orangerie, which is a wonderful facility where we'll be having an evening event. So just know that you do have an hour of time in between 4:30 to 5:30, but you should reconvene there to get shuttles that will take you to the event, which is very, very close by. The evening event will be very special. We've invited about 65 members of the public in addition to all of us. These are conservationists, they're administrators, they're political people, they're academics, and they'll all be here basically getting together to learn more about the SPP individual projects, but also the SPP network, and they're looking forward to that very much. So please keep your name tags with you. Please be there because we'll be introducing and indicating the different states, so we want to make sure that you're represented there at this gathering. I want to note again that we're going to be live streaming all of the proceedings today, and so we want to say hello to California. Everybody can turn around and say, hi, California, we love you, we wish you were here. And so that will be, so just make sure that you understand that we are videotaping this, and later we'll be taking some pictures as well. There's a parking moratorium, meaning that you can park free in the Officers Club here, in case you didn't know that. Just to review the location of the restrooms, which are near where the receptionist was down that hall. The breakout rooms, I think, are pretty simple. You'll see those around here. And the idea gallery that Eric will be discussing and telling you all about in just a few minutes. A couple of introductions. I want to introduce Paula Tuman, who's here in the beautiful white shirt. She is actually in the math department, but she chose to join us, and she'll be our note taker and the facilitator for California and our live streaming folks. So Paula, thanks so much for your help. I wanted to also mention this little folder, which you're free to take up. This is a group of readings and booklets that have been put together. They were actually being distributed at the Utah State Teachers Association. They're about science and math education, and they're at different grade levels, but I realized that they might be really appropriate for science education in prisons. And Maggie Osler is the sort of the representative or the agent who provided these free. So I just wanted to acknowledge her and Delta Education as a source of materials, possibly for science education in prisons. Emily and Antonia are available to answer any logistical questions you have. Eric is going to be our timekeeper, so he is the self-assigned bad guy. So if you're over time, he'll be flashing signs in your face so that we can keep on time.
I prefer professional nag.
Oh, professional nag. Okay, Eric will be our professional nag. So without further ado then, we're going to be hearing from Carrie and the Washington SPP. They'll be giving some overview information, and Dan will be, I believe, accompanying Carrie for this important information. Thanks, Carrie and Dan.
Hi, everybody. So Bernie Warner, who's the Secretary of the Washington Department of Corrections, couldn't be with us this morning, but might be joining us later today. Hopefully he'll be able to do that. As Dan mentioned, things have been a little complicated, so we'll just hope that he can make it. Can you hear me without the mic in the back? Yes, okay, great. You want me to use the mic?
Use the mic, Carrie.
All right. So there are a few things that I'd like to share with you today. Just partly about the network and how we're coming together, and just about SPP in general. And I was, like Nalini said, my heart was full of joy last night as I went around and I visited all of your posters, and I really felt that everyone who was here tonight or last night was really the intent of SPP was very clear in what you were presenting, and I was so excited. So some of the points that I thought that I might be wanting to make to kind of encourage you to take up the reins of SPP might not be as necessary, but I will just kind of reiterate some of the points that I wanted to make just in case. So the first one is really that I see every day in my work with SPP that partnership and collaboration is really the key to what we do. And not just that you partner with someone and that you gain something from them, but that every partner in the program has to be receiving benefits every day as you move along. And there may be some rough days where someone's really not benefiting, but you want to work to encourage everyone to communicate effectively about the benefits that they hope to gain from working with SPP, because the work is so unique, it's so revolutionary and so collaborative, but that it's all built on this tenuous web of collaboration and a whole lot of goodwill, right? And if that goodwill starts to expire because someone's not benefiting, then your web is definitely more subject to breakage. And so we'll be talking a little bit more, and Andrea and Dan will give a nice presentation on what we think really is required of these partnerships and how a little bit of disturbance is really good and all kinds of great things. But I mentioned partnerships and collaborations with multiple benefits because it's the very first of what we consider our essential components. And we have 5 essential components. And I'd like to take this moment to share with you a handbook of protocols. So maybe can you mobilize and pass them out? Because on page 11, we kind of outline the 5 essential components. And one of the things that came out of the September conference was that it seemed people were concerned. Oh, I can't possibly take on all of this all at once, which is completely true, and we don't expect you to. But as we started thinking about the essential components a little bit deeper, we realized that there are simple ways to kind of to address the intent of the component with a very simple action. And then once that's kind of established, you might dig deeper and tackle a larger component or a larger part of that essential component. And so some of the examples of tackling an essential component were very clear in your presentations last night. You guys had come up with very creative ways of say, combining education with nature or combining education with sustainable operations. One of the things that's been mentioned and that Nalini's been trying to work on for quite a while is trying to bring nature imagery into the IMU. And so this is the Supermax kind of situations, and she's making progress in Oregon, which is very exciting. But just that act of bringing an image into a high security system is bringing nature inside. If, say, you identify the natural image with its scientific name or a little bit of life history, you're educating. And to maybe choose the pictures that you use, maybe you're partnering with a conservation agency or a scientist outside. And so just the simple act of projecting an image on the screen in a Supermax could be meeting 3 of the essential components. And maybe you start evaluating how violence changes in the Supermax as a result of having these images. Then that's another one, that's 4. And so really, I think thinking about these essential components and simple ways to reach them is one of the goals that I'd have for you today. So page 11, that's where we have the essential components, and we're really excited about you adding your ideas to this, to the whole protocol book. And as a matter of fact, we're really excited about incorporating your protocols, getting your advice on which protocols are missing, what would be required, helping us refine the protocols that exist here. Are they helpful? Would they do you need more information? Could there be less information? And so I guess everything that we've done between September and now, I consider kind of a starting off point, right? Jocelyn had this great point that we're all making this great leap of faith together, but let's stop for a minute and enjoy the scenery before we jump, right? And so the scenery that we're providing is this protocol handbook. It's something that we've been working on for years. Nalini established a protocol system in Washington before I took the reins in 2011, and we've only been building on the protocols that we've been writing, and Jocelyn and our team really put this handbook together for us. And so this is our first edition. It's our first stab at it. It might look nice and glossy, but that's just the great publishing capabilities that we have today. It's not meant to be like a thing that's unchanging. We're hoping to put out a second edition at some point in the future with all of your contributions. And the same goes with the network. And so Jocelyn's going to talk more about the networking site as a tool that we hope you all contribute to our use of and build it together. So we're really building this network together. We don't want you to feel like we've gone on and done these things without your input and we're just taking control. But we felt like we had to put something forward for you to bounce off of. If we didn't have anything for you to bounce off of, we'd be just where we were in September. So that's really, I think, the goal of tomorrow will be helping us to really frame out this network and decide what we want it to be, what all of us want the network to be. So our goals really for the network are to share resources, get new sites going. That's already happening, and we can only help facilitate that more, I hope. Spread the word about SPP. Since the September gathering, so basically when we reached out to all of you, we knew you were interested, at least some of you were, most of you were interested in SPP, and we had, eight different groups represented at the September conference like we have today. But in the meantime, between September and today, we have interest in 22 states across the country. We have interest all over the world: Mexico City, Botswana, Saipan. Really, it's very, very exciting to be part of this kind of international movement. And so we want to, as we're building the SPP network, think not just about the US and our 50 states, but really about the world and how, a good idea takes off like a wildfire. And that's what we're hoping for all of this. And then, we also want to be talking a little bit about how much consistency do we want there to be as we repeat this program across the country and the world. What kinds of agreements do we need to set forward? What kinds of liability might there be? And this is just something that my institution raised with me recently, like, oh, people are using the SPP name. Does that mean that it would reflect poorly on the Evergreen State College? And I thought, I don't know. So it's something that we need to start thinking about as a group and have a very deliberate movement forward. So I think those were the things that I would like to say. And if you have more that you'd like to add.
I don't know that I can really add to what Carrie has already indicated. She did coin a term a while back around the project, calling it a win-win, win-win-win. I don't know how many of you have heard that, but when I think of the partnership aspect of it, that's what I go to all the time. Is it's successful when a conservation project partner gets what they need in the sense of either research or production of conservation items, or an Institute of Higher Learning gets what they need, or certainly the prison as well. So being a prison guy, I tend to focus on that more than other things, although it is something where if partners can win, then they stay in the fight, and then things kind of generate, and things kind of kind of take off and they accelerate and develop more and more in new and different initiatives. So it's important never to lose the aspect of it. It can be challenging at times, but I think at the core of it, that's what it is. That's what it really amounts to, the success of it. Outside of that, I mean, for me, just from a prison standpoint, I mean, part of what we focus on all the time is safe prison operations. I mean, how do we enhance safety for our own staff? How do we enhance safety for the offender population? How do we create an environment where the other kinds of programs that we offer are of value? So when I look at the program sometimes, so I mean, Washington is an evidence-based system where we do a lot of evidence-based work. And then on top of that, you know, we have prisons that are doing these other kinds of activities, whether it's endangered species projects or dog rescue programs or bicycle programs or composting or gardening or whatever the case may be. And so sometimes people look at those programs and they go, well, is that kind of a creaming process? I mean, do you really get the best of the inmates in there? And another way to flip that, at least for me, is I think if you can provide enough opportunities that are meaningful from the perspective of an offender population, what you may do is just create more and more better behaved offenders. In fact, you may create institutions that are more and more better behaved in the sense of violence within a prison setting, or their orientation towards doing something that's meaningful, either in the sense of the SPP work as we know it today, or in the sense of other programs that they may be involved in. Because what you really want an offender to do is have a portfolio of activities, right? They're going to go to school, or they're going to have a job, and then, you know, maybe they're in a dog rescue program, or they're in an endangered species project, that you start rounding out a much broader portfolio that enhances public safety. Ultimately, that's probably the business that we're in. So I continue to think about how many ways could I stretch this, and how could I stretch it to get to the point where really I have an activity, and I just keep pulling inmates into this area where they want to be better behaved, right? And they want to follow the institutional rules, or they find something that's meaningful enough to them to where they're not causing rule violations. I mean, Carrie used the example, and Nalini certainly did some work on this. I can't remember what year it was, like on IMU, on maximum custody, and certainly the term solitary confinement is used in the media a lot right now, or ADSEG is used in the media a lot right now. We really are today in a position where we could do science lectures in a maximum security environment. And I can certainly share with you some photos and arrangements about how we've set that up. But today, we're offering cognitive behavioral change in what would be considered supermax environments. We're doing faith-based, we're doing parenting. And I think we're right there. I mean, Nalini had the thought early on around imagery. I think we're to the point today where if Carrie wanted to go in and give a lecture, she could. Now, for some people, that almost strikes them as being odd, because these are the highest security and highest safety risks. But it really is around creating an environment where you can engage them in that way, because ultimately you want them out of that environment and moving through the system so that we have an impact on public safety. So how do you create meaningful opportunities to change that not only impact the prison setting, but ultimately impact public setting in the sense of how they leave the institutional environment? So as Carrie indicated, and certainly Nalini was bubbly about it this morning, I mean, yesterday afternoon and looking at all the posters and hearing all the testimonials, it really is incredible. I don't know if everybody feels the same way about that, but from where we left when we have the last conference to today, I mean, people have made some really leaps and jumps, and I think the potential in the future is just really there to really explode and do something large on a national scale, almost in an underground sort of way, because it really is kind of coming from the bottom up. It really is not a top priority from ASCA or ACA or anywhere else. I mean, it really is kind of a bottom-up movement around things that are meaningful, things that work for partners, things that enhance institutional safety, things that value other partners. It wasn't too long ago in my own career where prisons were kind of like dark places behind big walls and heavy fences where the public knew, Nalini actually quoted this one time in a speech, that we just kind of pumped money into them and people wondered, what's the outcome that we achieve? This is just a dark hole where pump money into and there's bad people behind those walls. So I think in some ways too, what you're doing is you're opening up those walls to other partners that have an interest in achieving a goal, whether it be a science goal or a research goal or a restoration goal. And how do we create those bridges to where, I mean, we can utilize human capital that exists in a way behind those walls, not only to meet our own interest around running safer prisons, but also to advance some broader social goal. A lot of human capital in there, so why don't we take advantage of it? So, is that enough, Carrie? Did I do it?
Great.
All right.
I guess, are there any questions? We have like 4 minutes for questions, if there are any questions.
I love the protocol book, by the way, for those of you who want to know that. The Evergreen crew put a lot of work into that.
No questions? Where's Eric? Oh, yes.
Other states are in the middle of trying, with you had mentioned 22
Yeah.
organizations, some international. I'm curious about what other states might be thinking about doing.
Yeah. Well, there's a science lecture series in Alabama that actually ran last year and is starting again this spring. There is a group of faculty and students at Skidmore University in New York that is putting together a reading list around sustainability, and they're going into prisons to seminar with inmates on those readings. Let's see. Michigan, yeah, Michigan is coordinating with a herpetologist to Head Start turtles, and they're
Turtles.
they basically get them going, and and to get for restoration purposes, and they actually submitted a grant to NSF to basically get the program going. We'll see whether oftentimes funding agencies want to see that you have something functional before they give a lot of money. So we'll just have to see how that turns out for them. We kind of helped advise them on their project. I feel I might not have prepared well enough to give you a lot of other examples, but there's interest from Florida and Colorado. I can't remember all of the states right now, but about half of them. Yeah, exactly. And they're all in different stages. A lot of the interest came after the kind of media blitz, where we were in the New York Times. That reached a lot of people, and we had a lot of contacts after that, especially across the world. A lot of researchers one or two researchers in Africa interested in doing something there. Some social scientists in Scotland. Another gentleman whose family works in the Mexico City prison system and wanted to get some projects implemented. So we're trying to keep communicating with them, but it's a big job that will start falling to Andrea to communicate with these new people.
Sustainable operations in Uruguay.
Yeah, Uruguay, that's right. So it's pretty exciting. Any other questions?